Petworking is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades.
Hello, welcome to Petworking. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and very excited to bring you a episode on a topic we haven't covered before today, and that is dog training. I'm really pleased to have Angie Winters join me on the show, the author of Don't Train Your Dog, a new philosophy in dog training that has actually been around for 28 years. Angie has been training and rehabilitating dogs that can't be fixed for some time. She has rehabilitated and trained over 1,000 dogs, largely working with shelters, with parents who are ready to give up their dogs. And her philosophy really, when we say don't train your dog, her philosophy really stems more around a specific style of training that shifts dog training to dog parenting. And I think that it's a very appropriate term and a really interesting philosophy. I was really pleased to see it, and it definitely resonated a lot with me and my personal experience in training peonies as I read through the book. But really, we talk about being pet parents, and Angie that is the heart of her philosophy. We hear about the different parenting styles of the permissive parent or the authoritarian parent, and then the authoritative parent. And Angie's philosophy really takes the authoritative style and applies it to dog training and dog parenting, and really kind of cements that value that I think we all hold dear, is that the dog is a member of the family and is treated as such. So I'm really happy to welcome Angie to the show. Angie, I hope I did justice to your philosophy there, but I know that you have 28 years of experience with this, and a book that has just come out and is available on Amazon. So I'll let you give an overview, and please feel free to add on or mention anything that I missed.
Yes, well, thank you for having me first. I do want to mention one thing about what you said, and that is that a lot of times when people hear authoritative parenting, they think of authoritarian. So sometimes they get those terms mixed up. But authoritative is actually the concept of having some firm rules, but your guidance and the way you teach things is with a very supportive nature. So I work with a lot of treats. I work with a lot of everything about it is positive. It's not a play on words to say it's parenting, because it's a completely different perception of the dog and perception of your life with the dog and how you teach dogs. So I equate typical training to, there's usually 2 camps that are fighting each other, and parents are getting caught in the crossfire, is what I say. So it's rendering them paralyzed, so they don't know what to do, because they feel like they only have the choices of either strict, what you call obedience training, which uses no treats, and there aren't very many pleasantries involved in that to get which I feel like is trying to create like a robotic dog that would does commands immediately on the spot, which I don't want my children to be robots, and I don't want my dog to be a robot. So, and then you have the other one that they basically is like all based on just treats and distractions. So what I teach is it's in the middle of that. I use a lot of treats, but I have some firm rules, but I don't. They're only firm rules that only matter about living in a family life. I don't have dogs do a down in the middle of a field for 3 minutes, because that doesn't help them live in a family and understand not to bite kids and not to run out the door. We just concentrate on the important safety rules that allows the dogs to have good behavior, and then concentrate on happiness and fulfillment. So they need to be happy and well behaved. And what people don't completely understand is they can't fully be one without being the other.
Right. No, and I think that really resonated with me, because as a father of 2 human children and a dog dad, you learn that kids and dogs don't thrive without boundaries. And if you have this philosophy of just permissive parenting, or everything's okay and everything's great,
I just want to be my dog's friend or my kid's friend, and it's like that causes anxiety. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Because you're asking a being that hasn't developed critical reasoning skills to think for themselves, and you're not providing that guidance, and you're not telling them what's right and what's wrong, and you're not
Right.
setting those boundaries, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I often say I would not have been prepared to become a dad to my two kids without having Peony first. But Peony was my first dog, and
Mhm.
I've had her for it'll be 8 years in January now. But my parents wouldn't let me have a dog when I was a kid, and then you go through college and moving, and that's probably not the best time to get a dog either, because you never know if your rental situation is going to allow it. But having Peony has been a life changing experience. But I often say that the training and getting her to where she is today is one of the things I'm most proud of what I've done. But it took as a new dog parent, it was definitely an adventure.
Mhm.
And we adopted Teeny, and she was between 2 and 3, and had been found as a stray in South Carolina, and definitely had a lot of anxiety. Definitely had some fear of people, a lot of fear of dogs. And over the years, I worked with so many different trainers, and like you said, the different schools of thought that are out there, they're not just confusing for pet parents, for dog parents, confusing for the dog too, right? And one of the things I really uh, liked about what you said is that and where and your philosophy is that it's meant to be something that everybody can do. Pick up on their body language when they don't like you'll be able to tell when she's not going to like a dog. And I would walk and walk, and I would see I couldn't always predict some dogs she would get along with, some dogs she would be scared of.
Right.
And we had, some people saying, oh, just give her a treat every time she sees a dog. Or others, would have, oh, just be very, very, very firm with her. And, there's so many different schools of thought out there.
Yeah, it makes it seem like only trainers or only people are doing something. And one thing's like, yeah, I can do incredible things with dogs. I can bring dogs, feral dogs, back in a week. I can bring, I can do some things that typical parents aren't going to need to do. And everybody's like, but I've always made sure that people understood that it's not magic and it's not me doing it. These things can be learned, and it's so easy doing the philosophies that are in the book that everybody says it can't be that easy, but then they see it with their own eyes. They're like, oh, that seems like magic. It can't be that easy. And they're like, the reason why you think it can't be that easy is because you've trying all this different types of dog training and all these repetitions, and everything's hard, and memorize these commands. And really, ultimately, it muddies the water for parents, because they feel like, and as I describe it in the book, dogs are so smart and so in tuned that they sit for a treat and they do a couple things, and dog parents are like, yay, it's working. This is working. Our communication is working. This is great. And then the trainer leaves, and then they go and they try to apply those to chasing kids, running out the door, feeling anxious or aggressive other dogs. And they try to use that same thing, the way they taught the tricks, to do that, and it doesn't work. And then that's how it starts spiraling down and behavior. And so, the reason why I call it parenting is not, it is a completely different philosophy, because it's really working with dogs, our emotional entanglement with dogs they're born with, entangled with us now. They're born looking to us for help. That's been studied. That's shown in puppies that would never, are not even old enough to learn it. They look to humans. So what my philosophy is, what I understood, is tapping into that natural thing where we're entangled with them, right? And then you easily get their trust and respect with that by teaching them this firm but supportive way. And then that's why I call it parenting, is because my definition of parenting, I finally realized, was 10 years ago. I was like, I'm not just parenting my kids, I'm also parenting the dogs, because my definition of parenting is providing love, support, and guidance to vulnerable family members. Now, dogs remain, basically 2-year-olds forever. So they are vulnerable to that and need guidance in our modern world. They've got many gifts of their own, but they have to live with us. And when they're living with us, we have to show them how to navigate that environment, and show them in a way they understand, not in a way of teaching tricks. So I use that emotional entanglement, and then But where it could really go off the rails is people need to understand that the way you give dogs guidance is completely different than you give children guidance. So that's what I explain in the book. It's easier with dogs, and they get it quickly. It's easier with them, but they definitely don't communicate. You can't communicate this guidance to dogs the same way you communicate with children.
Right. Now, as I read your philosophy, and I'm going to use corrections as the example here. But your philosophy is when you see unwanted behavior, you communicate to the dog that's not okay, either by making eye contact with them after to make sure that they understood that you didn't want them to do that, and then you redirect them to a more positive behavior that you do want.
Right. And so it starts, it is not a complicated book. It is an easy read. And we've actually got a lot of feedback about that. So I feel like I have achieved that it's a very easy read. It fits right into your life. And so I put my teaching into recipes for teaching things, and then prescriptions, simple prescriptions for fixing things. And we can talk about the fear thing, in a little bit if you want, because that's a major problem, which is causing, first of all, dogs are living in fear and anxiety every day, or they're losing their homes because of the reactions they're having from separation anxiety and all these things. So I lost my train of thought there for a second. We were talking about, so the recipe. So what we were talking about is a what's not allowed recipe. Okay. So I give parents a what's not allowed recipe, and it has 4 steps. And these 4 steps have to be the overview perspective that I teach in the first 2 chapters allows them to use the what's not allowed recipe effectively. And that is, you have to understand the look you have on your face when you're communicating with dogs. Okay. Because they're micro reading your face. They're tied to you emotionally, and they're like, oh, and words have a big impact on them. So this recipe is these 4 steps without using anything verbal, right? Because you've already got this connection. So the first 2 chapters explain this connection and how you can tap into it. And then when you learn the what's not allowed recipe, it's 4 steps basically, and it tells exactly how to do it. But basically, recognize the behavior very early, right? The behavior, like just, some simple dog body language, not these complicated charts with 15 things on there that people can't figure out. Here's a combination. If they lift their front paw like this, they're unsure about something, understand this, see the behavior early, see the guidance moment, go in and give the no, we don't do this guidance. We don't do this. Just, just firm enough. All dogs are different. So you got to match your firmness to their wiring. And your dog. So, but once you give that, it's not a correction, it's a guidance. Once you give that, you have to give the guidance until they look into your eyes for a second, right? So if you're blocking them, they have to do this and do this until they look at you. And then you just hold that for 1 second, 1/1000. So that's in their world and in their wiring, that sinks into them, right? So it teaches them, this is what the moment I'm telling you not to do, not something you were looking at a second earlier, not something this, I'm serious about this with my eye contact. It's not staring them down real mean. It's just emotionally neutral, get the eye contact, but then using high voices and high, facial things to say, but here's what you can do, blah, 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 blah. The treats and distraction training goes straight from the dog doing something to look over here and get this treat. There's no teaching moment. They don't understand. They don't fully understand. You don't want them to do that thing you just distracted them with a treat. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and I thought that was really key, because I think, it made a lot of sense to me. And from my personal experience, where I really started to see breakthroughs with Peony was once we had established that trust and bond. Like once she recognized that I was safe, that I was her person, like you said, dogs pick up on things really quickly. Like she picked up on sit and stay and, these things really quick. It's not until they can look to you and know, like, you're in command. And one of the things that it reminded me of is one of the trainers that we had worked with had trained with Cesar Millan. And so he kind of brought the pack leader mentality to the training. And it seemed like, some of your philosophy is sort of based on that. Is like, you're the parent, you're the pack leader, you're in charge. And, and when you're communicating that leadership and guidance style and confidence to your dog, they feed off that, and and that resonates with them. And
but mine differs from Cesar Millan's in that the energy brought to things are a lot higher there, right? And again, I'm not putting this down because, he is working with dogs that other trainers can't fix and don't need it. So it's like, it's hard to throw shade on that. It's like if the dog is happy and everything, no dog should be abused, obviously. And I'm not saying he's doing that, but it's a firmer approach. There's putting dogs down on your side and stuff, which, I've determined that doesn't work for a regular family environment. It causes you start being in like a physical battle with the dog, and you want to do that. So my firmness is just in my confidence. And when parents see, oh, I can just do this recipe, or oh, that's how he sees things, or that's how it works, then that gives him the firm confidence, and knowledge to control their facial expressions and stuff. But when people try to be harsh with their dogs, or they're trying to do like, I'm the pack leader, which applies if all dogs lived in the woods together, there's got to be, there's a leader. I mean, it's just not a question that there's a leader in the natural world. But at home, it's just like parenting kids, like that they're all the same. The dogs are all on the same level. And you have to make sure that I'm the one that handles the thing. So in that philosophy, it is. You don't have to worry about that noise outside. I got that taken care of. You can relax. And then they start feeling like they're off duty. And when they think they're off duty, that's when you see the relaxation come in. That's when you see their full personality start to come out. So I don't do those physical things with dogs in that way, because I don't have to, because once I've already established this thing, which is basically established in a day or two, and all parents can do it in a day or two with these techniques, then I don't have to bring any of that harsh leadership stuff, as in family leader, as in parent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took away. I never really, Brett, the trainer that we worked with, he never really put in any physical component to it, but it was really just all about projecting that confidence and making sure that they, that idea that if you project insecurity or negative energy, your dog is going to pick up on it. And then they're going to want to protect you, and then they feel like they need to step up, and that can exacerbate some of those problem behaviors that if you're walking, in the case of fear-based aggression, if you are scared of how your dog is going to react around other dogs, and you walk up and your dog can tell that you're nervous because you're thinking, oh, this might be a bad interaction. Well, all of a sudden they're reading your negative energy, right? And then they're projecting what's wrong with this dog, and nobody's taking charge of the situation.
They're reading your worry, right? So they're emotionally connected to you. So they know you're worrying. They know, like, microscopic. I mean, they're experts at reading our facial expression, the tone of our voice, and everything. So people talk too much in general to dogs, because then their dogs are like, as the dog's making the movement, you want them to go in the crate. If you talk to them when they're starting to go in the crate, they're like, oh, what? Is my crate bad because you said that word when my paw was just crossing the threshold and on my bed? They start trying to figure out what you're trying to communicate to them. So that's why, like, learning to be a little more silent and communicate with your body and everything, that does work. But where I see the Cesar Millan thing coming, people not being able to use that in their daily life, a typical parent who's busy, it needs to be easy, it needs to be thing, but it's the level of harshness that's brought to it, or it's the level of the energy of the correction or whatever. So they need recipes and stuff so that they can just remain emotionally neutral, because sometimes when people try to do that, they cross this line where the dog starts having a little fear. So you never want to cross that line. And here's exactly how not to cross that line. That's in my book. You don't want them to just dismiss you, but you don't want them to ignore you either. So here you do this it has to create no fear and not break any trust with you that you're going to do it. And confidence does do that, but it's how you give the parents the confidence. You can't just say, here, fake this and be harsh or something, or be firmer. They have to understand how to be firm but supportive, right? And then also courage and fantastic, and we do all these fun things. We do treats, we do all this stuff. Some of it is missing that extra super excited times that have to be perfectly timed. When to bring in excitement. But I feel like the harsher trainers, like they don't balance enough out with the excitement and the praise when they're doing other things great all day long.
I'd be curious to hear more of your philosophy around treats, because I know you mentioned and I think I've seen this personally as well, is positive reinforcement is great, but you mentioned, and I think I would agree, it can create a lot of confusion for the dog, right? That they don't know, what they're being rewarded for, right? Like I know, with Peony and she had some fear of other dogs. Some of the trainers we work with, they're like, oh yeah, as soon as you see another dog, just start giving them a treat, and they'll magically associate all dogs with treats. I don't think I never saw success with that. And when I look back on it, it's like, well, what exactly were we marketing? She could have been looking at a million and one different things just because I happened to see a dog and a treat. Like, she probably had no idea why she was getting the treat.
Right,
So,
right. And here's one thing that typical dog training makes people mess up on, right, for lack of a better term, is that, yeah, you do want to catch it early when they're looking at things, but the treats at the right time have to do with the emotions they're feeling, not what they just happen to be looking at, right? So they're not addressing the emotions. They're only addressing the physical body of where it's looking or something. So yeah, that comes into play when you want to catch it early, but they're addressing a scared or an angry emotion with a treat. So you're right in that.
You're reconditioning that fear, right? If
Right.
she's
So
looking at a dog and thinking like, oh, I'm scared and I'm on alert with this dog, and then she
yeah,
gets a treat. In some ways, that's probably reconditioning. Like, oh, that's exactly how I want you to react.
it makes it does escalate. It escalates until then. By
Um,
the time it escalates like that, then dog parents are like, well, and then the treats and distraction trainers will be like, well, your dog must have a fear gene, or your dog has an aggressive gene. They start making up all these terms to explain what was falling short. Right. So it's like nobody said before your dog has a fear gene. I mean, yes, some are born more sensitive to others, but when you see my book, you can see that you can guide as long you make things end on a good note for dogs, and you can keep any fear from developing. If you even if it's a sensitive dog, you just have to do this recipe, the fear recipe, and it always has to be 1, 2, 3 and end on a good note. It's how they end and it's how you feel about it. But if they don't have information that's truly working, which right now they only have treats and distractions or super obedience, if the parents don't have that, they're never going to feel completely confident about it. They know it's falling short. So then they just start second guessing themselves, second guessing their dog, and that's how dogs lose their homes and how children become in danger and um and adoptions don't work. So like the entire thing I've been doing for 28 years is to make adoptions work, like virtually foolproof. I mean, if a rescue shouldn't be adopting out a dog that is to the extreme where I would have to rehabilitate a feral dog or something. But virtually these techniques, which makes them easy, is it works on any breed, any age, any past experience. These philosophies apply. So here's the philosophy, here's the over perspective, and here's exactly how you do it. You can't just give them philosophy. They'd have to know, what can I use in my daily family life to make it work, and how can it be easy?
yeah, no, and I think that obviously we look at the business side of pet care and animal health here all the time, right? I lead our pet care and animal health practice, and one of the things that I have always struggled with when I encounter service-based businesses is that they're so dependent on the founder and that unique individualized skill set, right? It's very hard to replicate. And, so I appreciate, that you put the thought and consideration into this to make it accessible and make it usable for pet parents when you're not there, right? Because,
Right.
you
How
know,
can I save
there's,
dogs? Yeah.
yeah,
I can't
there's
save dogs.
there's only one Angie Winters. There's only
Right.
one Caesar Milan. There's all these different schools of thought, and I think people can make good dog trainers can probably fix any dog, right? Like you can come in with or you can have, if you're a professional dog trainer, you can probably come in and make a difference for a period of time. But I think the question is, does it stick after the fact?
Yeah.
And is it um, is it relatable to your everyday pet parent who like
Right.
you said is going to be managing kids and
Yeah.
not needing to have to pick up on cues and
Yeah.
you know
I mean, yeah, the first time a dog sees a teeny piece of hot dog, if he's never seen a teeny piece of hot dog, he's going to start doing some physical things if a trainer's having him here. Look at he sits. Look, he sits by here. Look, he lays down. He can stay down there for 3 minutes. I make it, but it's like none of that is actually a teaching moment for the dog besides a trick. That's really a trick or glorified tricks. And the reason why I've had to make I've continued to work on this for 28 years, making different content for parents is so they'll have everything that they need, I mean, I can go save dogs, like I can do it one at a time, four at a time. I can continue to do it, but that's not the reason why I'm here. I mean, I've gotten a second chance at life, I feel like, and I owe it to dogs. And I got that second chance because of dogs. And I don't have the option of quitting. Like, I don't have the option of stopping. I mean, it's like, if you knew how to fix a problem that you're seeing, it's running rampant, it's an epidemic, could you stop? Like, if you could save dogs and keep them in their home, could you stop? No, I can't stop. So it doesn't fulfill my mission to have people think that I'm some great, fantastic thing and I bear some secret to the thing. Yeah, I'm more experienced. Yeah, I'm pretty sensitive to dogs. I've watched animal behavior my entire life. I've been obsessed with it. But it has to work in an everyday home for an everyday parent in order for me to be able to cut back that, of dogs losing their homes or anything. So that's what I haven't done television shows. I mean, I've been like offered a couple things in time. It's like, I don't want to do that kind of a show in a way that those shows and typical training shows and books, they gloss over some things, they edit it and they make it look like things are more effective than they really are, or that they're easier than they are. And then that even just further defeats parents. Oh, I wish, I mean, and then they're like, oh, there's something wrong with this dog. Well, there might be something wrong with it, but it doesn't mean it can't be fixed. Just because they haven't seen it in typical dog training doesn't mean that there isn't an answer. And I got tons of them in that book.
Yeah, no, I mean, and like you said, it's I thought your story, of your near death experience and that giving purpose and renewed drive and focus to your mission was really inspiring, and I definitely recommend everybody read the book. If for no other reason than to read your personal story. It's a great read for any animal lover. But you mentioned, making adoption successful, and we did an episode with Hill, back in early August with Dr. Karen Chenoy, their chief veterinary officer, and Shelter Dogs Count, and we reviewed the state of shelter pet adoption report that they had come out with, and one of the more interesting statistics that sticks with me from that episode is that 46% of parents who experienced post-adoption anxiety was because of behavioral issues. And, one of the big recommendations of the report was, but on the flip side of that, 94% of parents who considered surrendering their pet after adopting it kept it if they were given access to training support and help, right? And so I think, when we're looking at this, we need to be able to provide these resources for people who are, adopting pets, right? Some of it's incumbent on the shelters to make sure that they're adopting out dogs that are fit for adoption. But at the same time, I think that the common thread here is that, every dog deserves a shot at a good life, right? And every dog, ostensibly is fixable, right? That there's, like you said, there might be underlying problems there. And I always kind of harken back to the quote, you can't change a dog's past, but you can fix its future.
And dogs are less complicated than us. They're not sitting there, they're having, yes, nervous system reactions to things they've been through. And when they fears are developed, you have to undo those, because what I've figured out is that people are we're going to correct these fears, and they try to do it with a treat or whatever. It's like, there are certain levels of fear. And so when I went through years and years, and because I couldn't even fix my border collie's fears with regular typical dog training or anything, he was highly sensitive and super smart. And so my work with him, when I finally undid all that, was to figure out that, basically dogs can be afraid of unlimited amount of things in the modern world, unlimited, depending on how their exposure goes. But it can be stopped at exposures, or, it can be redirected and give them the guidance that they need to say, no, that we don't need to be afraid of that, but it has to be these steps and it has to end on a good note. But when these higher level of fears come, it takes something completely different to undo those. So it takes a different recipe or different prescription in the book to fix those. So basically in my study and my work of dogs, which has been vast for 28 years, is that there's really 3 levels of resulting fear. They either are unsure of something that could be right then, or they've already developed a fear, which would be like a mild level fear. And here's the recipe for correcting that. And then a high level fear, like terrified. And there's only a certain, you have to do certain steps for that. They won't take treats when they're terrified. So you can't give them treats for that. And so there is nothing out there to help the parents with terrified dogs. They just live in absolute, terror every day. I've seen dogs that won't even get out of their bed. Because once you allow one fear to be there, another one develops, and then another one develops. And pretty soon you have a dog's like, they're running around all day long, like expecting monsters to drop out or fighting monsters because they believe that one monster in the stair exists or that one monster in the truck outside exists. So now you got to be on guard. So you have to know how to just take all that away to replace those with positive experiences by ending on a good note. But you can't just throw treats at them. And that's one of the big things that's happened with this. When they call it all positive, that's actually a misnomer, because there are things in there that aren't positive, shaking cans of coins behind their back and stuff. So, but which I think is scary and have caused a lot of fear in dogs. And I've had to undo those dogs. So if people work in the rescue world, see, I've been with the parents, I've been in the rescue world, I've seen breeders, I've worked so many different areas of this for 28 years. I think that's how I've been able to see the big picture and see what will fix it and what needs to be fixed. I don't just live in the training world. I don't live in this training world or that training world, but I think that people in rescue would probably disagree. Not that that study isn't valid. I'm sure it's completely valid, the study they just did. But I think they would disagree that 94% of the people who have adopted dogs and considered surrendering kept it. How long did that go out? Sometimes they don't give them up for 2 or 3 years after they've exhausted everything. If the study's only a year out, when you work in rescue, it's pretty.
That it was 94% of those who got training support.
Yeah, but how many years did they follow out? Like, was that 1 year?
I don't know how. Yeah.
See, I mean, it's like, I'm sure it's a perfectly valid study, but when you live in the rescue world, I think that you're pretty convinced that it's less than 94% that got regular training and kept them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and there's certainly that stigma, and like you talked about, where parents feel powerless, or if they can't correct an issue, they feel like it reflects negatively on them. If your dog is scared of other dogs, then you're getting dirty looks when you're walking your dog down the bike path or on the sidewalk because it's barking or lunging at other dogs, or it barks or lunges at the UPS truck or the mail truck or things like that.
Right. And when you tried other
things, I think that,
when they try all these other things, they've tried all different trainers, they've tried all these things. I don't get to them until after that normally, because it's bad. And plus I've had to concentrate on, saving millions of dogs instead of this dog. But it's when it gets down to it, Peter, it's really when they get to a loss of hope, right? I've tried everything out there. I've looked at everything out there, which is why I've got to get this information out there, because once they lose hope, and it's that way with human in any aspect of your life, if you lose total hope on it, then it's a destitute feeling, and you start realizing, like, this dog is so unhappy, my kids are in danger, it's separation anxiety, we can't leave the house, it's eaten 4 socks and ripped up a couch when we left, and broke out windows and bloodied their arms. I mean, this stuff gets bad, and people are glossing over that, and then they blame the parents for surrendering the dog. Right. I know, I'm not saying that, parents need to put effort into it. Right? And there's always going to be some parents who don't put enough effort into it, and enough just for kids too. But there is a whole level of something that's going on out there where they are trying, and they're trying hard, what they can within their life, and they've lost hope.
Yeah. And I think it's great that, you're, it's tough to scale a services business philosophy. There are those seminal parents out there that have come to be recognized as the gold standard for parenting our human children. I guess in the time we have left, Angie, could you kind of walk us through a classic case, give parents a taste of your philosophy, how you correct a common issue that you see, and and hopefully that'll give some hope to the parents out there that might be struggling with problem behaviors or fear-based.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, actually, because I was just talking to a trainer on another interview, and we were talking about she was like, no, the stuff that you say you do, because she glanced through the chapter on crate, right? The stuff you say you do is the same. And I was like, the stuff I do is not anywhere close to the same, but they're viewing it as the same. And I said, here's the difference. And parents will understand this. If you've got a crate, and in a crate, if you want your dog to sleep with you or anything in the bed, that's great. And you want to lay on the couch, that's great. But this crate, them loving their crate and having a special place that they can go to where no kids can bother them, no other dogs can bother them. They're perfectly safe. They're off duty. They can actually relax for a minute. And so the goal is to have them have that attitude towards the crate, right? Not just get in sometimes robotically, because they've learned to do that and they're still uncomfortable when they're inside there. I mean, truly loving your crate. And that's gone downhill so much that most parents believe that can never happen. Like every dog I come across, they say, no, my dog hates his crate. It's never going to work with my dog, right? But then I take my recipe takes out all human emotion and all human interaction, barring a tiny little bit. And I just set up the parameters where the dog within this couple day period absolutely chooses to get in, and it's worked 100% of the time, including dogs that have torn apart every crate, could never go in another crate. And I'm just telling you, it works because the dogs know when you're doing commands to get in the crate or commands to set down there or whatever, they know that you're involved in it, that you have, and then people get frustrated because they won't lay down. They won't do their lay down command when I told them to get in, and now they won't go in. So you got to set up that first introductions, or whether it's already a bad feeling about the crate or a new puppy, you have to set that up, the scenario up of which they choose that themselves, absolutely by themselves, not you tried to make them feel good about it. So I set up this scenario that can work in your kitchen. It can work while you're cooking dinner or whatever. Dogs choose to get in there, and then I start desensitizing to closing the crate for a second. It's like a recipe that's step 1, 2, and 3. And it's completely different than what the typical trainers are saying to do about the crate. And that now you've got a dog that you can leave. You can work on separation anxiety doesn't develop. It's not going to ruin your potty training all over the house when you have to leave somewhere. You have to prepare them for leaving. But people actually don't believe that this crate thing will work until they see it with their own eyes or they tell it themselves. And then they're like, that looked like magic.
Cool. And you have other recipes. I love your recipe on, or your prescription for, helping fear-based aggression. You have a great chapter on providing relationship between kids and dogs. It's a really, I really interesting philosophy. I think, one that I can definitely resonate with, and, certainly one that, I hope, with pet parents can see the same level of success that you've seen in your years of experience and rehabilitating and fixing dogs. Because I think it will hopefully put an end to the surrenders of lots of dogs out there, give hope and confidence to pet parents who might be struggling with the decision about whether to give up a dog or not. Dogs adoptable. So I think it's great that you documented these philosophies and are getting it out there in this book.
Yeah, I mean, and I've taught, all these years I've taught parents to do it too. It's not just successful when I do it; it's successful when the parents do it too, because it's like they always say, well, that just makes common sense. And it's like, well, that is when something's successful, is when it makes common sense and it works with everyday life. But just one note on the shelter thing too. One of the problems I've come up against is a lot of times, even in the rescues, there'll be 2 people from the board or something that'll go ahead and give me a dog because they know this dog is going to be put to sleep and it can't be fixed. But they've all gotten onto this where we are only going to sign this all positive. We'll only take them to all positive trainers, and shelters are doing that too. Well, everything I do is completely positive. It's just not the same treats and distractions exclusively, and it actually works. And so shelters, and I would like to say to the boards of shelters to open up to this other information in order to keep dogs in their homes, first of all, and not be surrendered, and then to make adoptions happen. We got to think outside the box on this now. We've already done this same dog training thing for a lot of years, and it's going up. Problems are going up, not down.
Adoptions are down. That was one thing that definitely came out in that shelter pet adoption report, especially for large dogs, which are more difficult. If you have a large dog that you can't control, that doesn't trust you, it's a lot more problematic than a small dog that you can just pick up and put under your arm.
I mean, a small dog bites them. The small dogs bite people as much as the big ones do, and but the people are just like, you can kind of blow that off, or they try to mitigate that. But when it's a big, powerful dog, then it's like, you cannot mitigate it. If you don't know how to mitigate it, you can't. But like I said, these philosophies work on any dog, any size, any breed. It's all the same because it's that emotional connection you're working with and making them feel good about their position in the family, and making them feel and making them be able to learn family skills without creating aggression or fear.
Yeah, yeah. And you have a website that folks can go to.
Yep.
We'd love to throw out, if you enjoyed the episode, definitely comment on it on LinkedIn, and you can go to Angie's website, and that's parentingfordogs.com.
Yep, parenting for dogs with a number 4, parentingfordogs.com. And my social media is still, some is in Angie for Dogs, which is the number 4, and Parenting for Dogs, because we kind of merged those things. Says Angie for Dogs was the mission driven company I started in 2012, and then we're rebranded to Parenting for Dogs to with the whole book and the recipes and getting all this information out.
And if you are interested in trying, Angie's philosophies and reading the book, if you comment on the episode today and go to parentingfordogs.com, we'll get you a discount for the book. It's available on Amazon. I think there are digital copies available as well. Definitely a great read. And, at the end of the day, we're I think everybody in this industry is out to ensure that pets and their parents have a better life together. And Angie's taken some great steps to, help pet parents find solutions to problems that they may be having. Angie, just to close, I know obviously it's probably a lot to ask, to make yourself available to anyone who reads your book, but folks try this out and they're having some problems with the prescriptions and recipes. Are you available for contact through your social media and the website?
Yeah, and what we've also set up is we just feel like we're creating at Parenting for Dogs, we're creating really a compassionate community and support for dog parents, to understand that you're not training a wild or domesticated animal, how to actually parent a dog effectively, which is different than how you parent kids. And then to share and have supportive things there. I didn't even mention that the book has a QR code that the readers can scan, and they have instant access to the digital companion that goes with the book, where when you're reading one of the recipes and you're like, I'd like to see how that's done in real life, then you could just go to the digital companion. There's video, there's all the downloadables, you can customize your own potty training schedule and download it. So there's recipes, you can print them out and hang them up on your refrigerator. So, we're creating a whole community there where dog parents can have support by not just from me and all of us at Parenting for Dogs, but by other dog parents. And how did your journey happen? And to, even to tell humorous stories, because, just like parenting kids, there's some humor in it, and, we're not creating robots. We want well-behaved children, but, we don't want robots.
Absolutely. You want to share it. Well, Angie, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm really looking forward to seeing, and to putting some of these philosophies to work with Guinea. Like you said, this works for dogs of any age. So even though she's almost 10, I think we continue to evolve our relationship, and I hope other pet parents will find similar degrees of success and things they can take away from the book. Don't Train Your Dog, available on Amazon.com, parentingfordogs.com. I'm Peter Kenseth with Petworking, and Angie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you again soon.